All right, ready for a deep dive? Today's a big one,
Oh, yeah.
like really big. We're tackling the question of what makes us humans unique.
Well, that is a pretty fundamental question.
It is, and it feels even more urgent now. I mean, we share the planet with animals that have just mind-blowing abilities,
True.
and then we're building machines that seem like, I don't know, they almost outsmart us more every single day.
It's definitely getting more complicated the more we learn, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So that's why I find the source material so fascinating. We're diving into this excerpt from a text called "If We Are Not Animals or Robots, Then Who Are We?"
Who do you...
It's from this group, the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, led by someone named Waxhira. Have you ever heard of them?
I have. Yeah, they definitely come at this whole question from a pretty specific spiritual angle.
Right. Yeah.
But the ideas they explore, I think, are actually surprisingly relevant to, like, anyone trying to understand our place in the world.
Especially now.
Especially now.
Yeah. So to kind of ease into this, let's start with something we can all relate to, right? Animals. This text points out some seriously impressive stuff that animals can do that kind of makes us humans look, well,
A little less impressive.
yeah, a little less impressive.
I know what you mean.
Like, have you ever seen those nature documentaries where, like, this tiny little bird will migrate across entire continents?
Oh, you're talking about the Arctic Tern.
Yeah.
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 They fly thousands of miles every year, and it's all instinct.
Exactly. Or even ants, you know? Those tiny little things can carry, like, many, many, many times their own weight.
It's crazy.
When you see stuff like that, it makes you think, like, what does superior intelligence even mean if we're constantly getting shown up by other species?
It really challenges that human-centric bias we have. You know, we think we're at the top of the ladder,
Right.
and then you see a chimp using tools or a dolphin communicating in complex ways, and it's like, wait a minute, are we really superior or just different?
Yeah.
Different kinds of intelligence.
And this text goes beyond, just physical feats.
Oh,
It also talks about the incredible social and emotional intelligence that animals have, like elephants mourning their dead or dogs showing such loyalty and empathy.
those are good examples.
It's like that line between human intelligence and animal intelligence gets blurrier the closer you look.
Absolutely. And, that kind of leads us to the other side of this whole equation.
Robots.
Robots.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because it used to be that we thought, okay, machines, they're going to handle manual labor, that kind of thing.
Right.
But now they're composing music, writing poetry. Heck, some of them are even diagnosing diseases with, like, incredible accuracy.
It's a little, I don't know, I get a little nervous thinking about that.
I understand that.
Especially when I see how fast AI is evolving.
It's true. It's moving fast.
It's almost like they're encroaching on these areas that we always thought were, like, uniquely human, you know? Like creativity, intuition, emotional intelligence.
This is what the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood is trying to address. They're saying, hey, humans, we're not just sophisticated animals. We're not just biological machines either.
Okay.
There's something more. They call it a divine essence. That's what sets us apart.
All right, divine essence. It sounds pretty mystical, I gotta be honest.
Sure.
What does that even mean?
Think of it this way, like a spark of something greater
Okay.
inside us, A connection to something beyond just the material world.
Yeah.
It's not just about our brains, not just about our bodies.
So it's like, it's a quality
Yeah, a quality.
that allows us to do things that, as far as we know, animals and machines can't do.
Create, love, seek meaning.
So more of a spiritual or philosophical idea.
Exactly. Although it might sound kind of out there,
Right.
it's an idea that you can actually find echoed in lots of different spiritual traditions.
Really?
Yeah. Think about, like, the Bible,
Yeah.
humans created in God's image, or the concept of a soul in Greek philosophy. It all points to something special about human consciousness.
Okay, so how does this divine essence thing actually show UP in our lives? What can we do that's different from animals and robots?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. The text argues that, okay, animals, they're intelligent, they
Yeah.
adapt,
Right.
but they're mostly operating on instinct, right? Humans, on the other hand, we've got this capacity for self-awareness, for moral judgment. We shape our own destinies.
That's true.
We don't just react.
That's it.
We shape our environment. We don't just react to it.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about robots?
Aye.
They can learn and adapt. I mean, even solve problems in ways that we can't. So how does this divine essence make us different from them, especially as they get more and more sophisticated?
Well, the text says it comes down to a few key things. Robots, even with all their fancy algorithms, they're basically programmed, right?
Right.
They might MI creativity or empathy, but it's not the real deal. They don't have genuine love, compassion, or that drive to search for meaning.
They're missing the spark.
They're missing the spark. And that is where the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood comes in. Their whole mission, they believe, is to help people rediscover this divine essence.
Wait, so it's not just a bunch of philosophers sitting around debating. They actually have practices or teachings to, like, help people access this.
Exactly. They offer a path to self-realization through meditation, study, and spiritual practice, reconnecting with that part of us that's linked to something bigger.
Okay, so they're like guides then, helping people remember who they really are.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's a powerful idea.
It is, especially now. The text really emphasizes how crucial this is today. Because the lines between, organic and artificial are getting so blurry.
This is true.
We're just surrounded by this tech that's both amazing,
Yeah.
and potentially dehumanizing, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to lose sight of what makes us truly human and all that.
So their message is like, hey, don't forget who you are, even in a world of superpowered animals and increasingly intelligent machines.
Don't forget that spark.
Yeah.
That's a great way to sum it up.
I'm feeling that. We've gone from migrating birds to AI poets and the divine essence of humanity. It's a lot.
It is. But we're just getting started. We've laid the groundwork here.
Okay.
We've explored these amazing animal abilities, the rise of robots, and this whole Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood take on the divine essence of humanity.
Okay.
Now, I want to delve deeper into some of the spiritual traditions that inform their beliefs.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, the text mentions the Bible, Jesus' teachings, things like that.
Okay.
I'm curious to see how those connect to this whole divine essence idea.
Let's do it. Let's unpack that.
Welcome back to our deep dive. Still exploring what makes us human.
So last time we were talking about that divine essence idea.
Right.
And the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood believes there are ways to cultivate it, to actually, like, develop it.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to learn more about what that looks like, in practice.
Well, the text specifically mentions meditation and study as key parts of their path.
Okay.
And I think if we look at other spiritual traditions that have this idea of a divine spark,
Yeah.
we might get some clues about how those practices work.
Okay, so meditation. It's, like, everywhere these days.
It really is.
But what makes it so important specifically in this context, with the divine essence?
Think of it this way. It's like tuning out all that noise of the outside world
Okay.
and then turning into your inner voice,
Oh, I like that.
that connection to something bigger, stilling the mind, becoming more aware of your thoughts and feelings.
So it's not just about relaxing or, like, de-stressing.
It can be that too,
Right.
but it's also about connecting with that deeper part of ourselves.
That divine essence.
Exactly. And there's so many different ways to do it,
Yeah.
Focusing on your breath, using mantras, visualization. They all help cultivate that awareness.
Okay, that makes sense. What about study then? How does that fit in?
Well, in this context, it's not just about like memorizing facts and figures.
Right.
It's about expanding your understanding of yourself and the universe.
So more like seeking wisdom.
Yeah, seeking wisdom. It could be through exploring spiritual texts, philosophical ideas, scientific discoveries, anything that helps you see those connections,
The interconnectedness of it all.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be, formal study either.
Oh, yeah.
It could be reading ancient scripture, sure,
Right.
but also engaging in philosophical discussions. Even just observing nature with a sense of awe,
It's about approaching it with curiosity.
curiosity, and a desire to learn.
I'm starting to see how meditation and study work together. Like, one helps you quiet your mind and connect inward,
Yes?
and then the other gives you a framework for understanding, for actually applying that wisdom to your life.
It's a beautiful synergy. And, if you look at spiritual teachers, mystics throughout history,
Yeah.
these practices have been essential to their journeys.
So it's not just theory. These are like tried and true methods
Yeah.
for connecting with that spark, for living a more meaningful life.
That's the idea. But let's get back to the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood for a minute.
Okay.
How do they actually use these practices to help people?
Well, the text doesn't really go into a ton of detail about their rituals and teachings, does it?
No, not really. But based on what we know about spiritual practices in general, we can make some educated guesses.
All right, let's speculate. What do you imagine their gatherings might look like?
Okay, well, I bet they do guided meditations.
Okay.
Maybe using visualizations or mantras that are specific to their tradition.
Interesting.
They probably study ancient texts, too, that would pass down.
Focusing on that divine essence.
Yeah, and how to cultivate it. So
Yeah.
it's like that blend of inner exploration through meditation
Yeah.
and intellectual understanding through study.
Right, but how does it all translate into everyday life? Like, how did these practices actually HLE people deal with, the challenges of being human?
That's the million-dollar question,
This
right?
is
I think it comes down to the inner peace
okay.
and clarity that these practices can foster.
Yeah. So, like, you're less reactive.
Exactly. When you feel connected to something bigger than yourself, those external pressures and anxieties, they just don't have as much power over you.
It's like building inner strength.
Yeah, a
You
foundation.
can weather those storms.
Exactly. Meditation can help with stress,
Right.
cultivate emotional resilience, and study can give you wisdom and perspective to, navigate this complex world.
And connection to the divine, it gives you that sense of purpose.
Purpose, meaning
Right.
that transcends those everyday ups and downs.
I'm starting to see how these practices aren't about escaping from the world.
Well,
It's about being more equipped to actually live in it
more fully, yeah.
with more awareness, more compassion, more purpose.
It's it. It's a message that really resonates with people, especially now when everything feels so fast-paced and chaotic.
Totally. But the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, it's just one perspective,
Well,
right?
of course,
Throughout history, people have been asking these same questions
across cultures, yeah.
about what it means to be human, how to live a good life.
It's a universal question.
So are there other groups or traditions that have, similar beliefs? And how are their approaches to cultivating that spark different?
Oh, there are tons. What about, like, Eastern traditions?
Okay, like what?
Hinduism and Buddhism. They both have these rich philosophical and spiritual frameworks for understanding consciousness.
Oh, right. Hinduism has that concept of Atman. Right, the soul, the self.
You got it.
Is that similar to this divine essence idea?
Definitely in the same ballpark. Atman is like a spark of the divine.
Okay.
Brahman residing within each of us, eternal, unchanging, not bound by the physical body.
Sounding familiar.
Right.
So realizing your true nature in Hinduism, it's about recognizing that you are that Atman.
Not just your physical self.
Exactly. And practices like yoga and meditation are tools to get there,
To purify the mind and body.
leading to that union with Brahman.
That's the goal. Now, Buddhism, they have a slightly different take.
Oh.
They emphasize Anatman, the idea that there's no permanent self.
Whoa, okay, no self. That's a lot to process. So what are we then? Does Buddhism just deny the divine spark altogether?
Not necessarily. While they reject the idea of a permanent soul, a lot of Buddhist schools believe in this fundamental ground of being.
Okay.
They call it Buddha nature.
Buddha nature.
It's the potential for enlightenment, for awakening.
So everyone has it.
It's within all beings. So, yeah, less about a fixed spark and more about a potential
That we can cultivate.
through meditation and mindfulness.
It's so interesting how these different traditions, they might use different language, different frameworks, but they seem to be getting at something similar.
It's like there's this common thread, right?
Yeah.
This idea of something beyond the physical, a deeper consciousness.
That we can tap into through these practices.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered some Eastern traditions. What about Western philosophy? Were there any thinkers who were on this wavelength?
Oh, absolutely. Plato, Aristotle, even some more modern philosophers, they've all explored consciousness, self-awareness, what it means to live a good life.
Plato had that idea of the soul being separate from the body, right?
Yeah. He believed the soul was immortal,
Immortal.
belonging to this realm of perfect forms while the body was temporary.
Okay, and how does that connect to what we've been talking about?
Well, it resonates with that idea of the divine spark, right?
Being veiled by our physical existence.
Yeah. So for Plato, realizing your true nature meant freeing your soul from those limitations.
Connecting with truth and beauty.
And he believed that philosophy, through reason and contemplation, was the way to achieve that.
It's amazing how these ideas, even expressed in such different ways, all point to this deeper self, this something beyond our physical form.
It is pretty remarkable. But is it all just philosophy and religious speculation? Or is there
Yeah.
any, scientific evidence for this deeper level of consciousness?
Ooh, good question.
It's controversial, for sure.
Right.
But there are some interesting lines of inquiry happening in fields like quantum physics and neuroscience.
Okay.
They're challenging our conventional ideas about consciousness. For example, have you heard of quantum entanglement?
Vaguely.
It suggests that particles can be connected in ways that, go beyond space and time.
That's trippy.
Right. It hints at this interconnectedness that we don't fully understand.
And how does that relate to human consciousness?
Well, some researchers are exploring the idea that consciousness itself might operate on a quantum level. So
Whoa.
our brains are like receivers,
Receiver
a
forward.
universal
Oh,
consciousness.
so consciousness isn't just produced by the brain.
Maybe not.
It's like we're tapping into something that's already there.
A field of consciousness.
It's a lot to take in. We've gone from the animal kingdom to robots to ancient traditions, and now we're talking quantum physics.
And through it all, that idea keeps popping up.
Which one?
That we're more than our physical bodies.
Yeah.
That there's this deeper level connecting us to something larger.
It's incredible, right?
It is. But while we may never fully grasp the answer, I think the act of searching itself, exploring these ideas,
Yeah.
that's what truly enriches our lives.
So where do we go from here? What do we actually do with all this?
The key takeaway, I think, is that we have a choice. We can live on the surface, driven by ego, by material stuff, or we can choose to go on that journey of self-discovery, cultivate that inner spark.
Connect to something more.
Exactly.
It's a call to action, to really live consciously
And explore our inner world.
with that same curiosity that we use to explore the world around us.
Precisely. And the great thing is, there are so many paths to choose from.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Spiritual practices, philosophical inquiry, creative expression, even just living with more awareness and compassion.
This deep dive has given us a lot to chew on.
Yes.
So many paths to explore.
We've just scratched the surface, really.
We've only just scratched the surface.
There are so many other perspectives on what it means to be human.
Oh, there are.
Oh, yeah. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll broaden our horizons even further.
Ooh, I can't wait.
We'll explore some of those other perspectives on being human.
That's what I love about these deep dives. More questions than answers.
Always.
But in a good way. It opens up so many possibilities. Welcome back, deep divers. We are on the final leg of our exploration of what makes us human. We've covered a lot,
Yeah.
from those crazy animal abilities to the rise of AI, the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, ancient Eastern traditions, even Western philosophy.
That's a lot to take in.
It is. And everywhere we look, it seems like humanity has been wrestling with this question: what sets us apart? What's our true nature?
And it's fascinating how many different paths people have taken to try and find those answers.
Isn't it?
Last time we were talking about Hinduism and Buddhism and their perspectives on consciousness and the self.
Right, right.
But there are so many other traditions and philosophies that we haven't even touched on yet.
Okay, I'm ready. What else is out there? What other perspectives might help us understand what it means to be human?
Well, let's think about indigenous cultures for a minute.
Okay.
A lot of indigenous traditions have this deep reverence for nature, this holistic worldview.
Where everything's connected.
Exactly. And their understanding of the self is often rooted in that sense of belonging to a community, to the land, to the ancestors.
That's so different from, like, the individualistic focus we see in Western cultures.
It is.
So how does that communal perspective change how they see what it means to be human?
Well, for a lot of indigenous cultures, identity isn't just about personal achievements or individual goals.
Right.
It's about your role in the community, your connection to the natural world, and your responsibility to maintain harmony within that web of relationships.
Wow. So their sense of self goes way beyond just their individual body.
It does. It encompasses their whole community and the environment.
That's beautiful.
It really is. And it makes us rethink our own assumptions about the self, you know?
Yeah.
What if it's not just about individual fulfillment? What if our true nature is about interconnectedness?
What if our purpose is about contributing to the well-being of the whole?
Exactly.
It makes you wonder if all this emphasis on individualism has actually taken us further away from understanding who we really are.
That's a good point. And it's something a lot of modern thinkers are wrestling with.
Especially with, like, climate change and all these global challenges.
Right. These issues demand that we look beyond self-interest.
We have to recognize that we're all interconnected.
Exactly. So maybe these indigenous traditions have something to teach us about living in a more harmonious and sustainable way.
That makes sense. Are there any other perspectives out there that, like, really challenge our understanding of what it means to be human?
Definitely. We've been focusing a lot on spiritual and philosophical ideas.
Right.
But what about art? What about creativity?
Oh, interesting. How does art play into all of this?
Well, think about it. Humans have been creating art since, like, forever.
It's true.
Cave paintings, symphonies, dance, literature. We have this urge to express ourselves, to tell stories,
To create.
to capture beauty and meaning. And some people would argue that it's through art that we tap into our most authentic selves.
So it's not just a hobby, it's like essential to being human.
It's fundamental.
Yeah.
It's a way of transcending language and logic, of connecting with emotions and experiences that we can't always put into words.
Maybe it's even a way of accessing that divine spark we've been talking about.
Right. It's like we're channeling something bigger than ourselves when we create.
I love that. It reminds us that our potential isn't just about intellect or spirituality.
Right.
It can also be expressed through our imagination, our creativity.
Shaping the world with beauty and meaning.
This has been an amazing journey. We've explored so many different facets of what it means to be human animal instincts, spiritual aspirations, logic, creativity.
It's like we're putting together this giant puzzle.
With every new perspective, we add another piece.
And the amazing thing is, the puzzle's never really complete.
There's always more to discover.
Always more to explore, more layers to unravel. That's what keeps it so interesting.
So, where does this leave us? What's the big takeaway from all this?
I think the biggest takeaway is just how complex and beautiful it is to be human.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer, no single definition that captures it all.
Right.
We're this paradox of contradictions, capable of incredible love, cruelty, wisdom, and foolishness.
Boundless creativity and destructive tendencies.
All wrapped up in one.
And maybe that's okay.
Maybe it is.
Maybe the beauty is in that complexity, in acknowledging both the light and the shadow.
And striving to live a life that reflects our highest potential.
That's it. So to everyone listening, we encourage you to keep exploring.
Keep diving deep.
Dive into those practices that resonate with you, engage with different perspectives, and never stop asking those big questions.
The journey of self-discovery is a lifelong adventure.
And the rewards are immeasurable. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the nature of humanity. Until next time, keep those minds open, those hearts curious, and keep exploring.